The question is, when will these things be, the stuff we were just talking about, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? People struggle with the word coming there because they think, well, does that mean second coming? Right? We're talking about the second coming. Again, we got to be cautious with that. Just because a word is in the Bible doesn't mean it means the same thing in every single place. We got to be careful with that.
Jeff Durbin, who, by the way, I do like, just made a video probably about a week or so ago responding to something that Philip Anthony Mitchell, pastor of 2819 Church, said. He's doing a sermon series, or at least he was, about the end times. Now, something about Jeff, he is a millennial, and a lot of covenantal believers, a lot of Calvinists, not all Calvinists, because John MacArthur, who was a Calvinist, is not one, but a lot of Calvinists hold to this. And I think the issue is when you hold to a certain doctrinal statement or belief system, sometimes some of your rules, your hermeneutics, end up becoming inconsistent. And I'm going to show that in just a little bit. Before we do, I want to go ahead and play a little bit of this clip, and let's look at the text and let's see what Jesus is saying and what Jesus meant, and let's see if who's right, Philip Anthony Mitchell, who, by the way, I agree with on this, or Jeff Durbin.
His followers who are concerned about the end times come to him and ask him questions about the end times and the end of the age and the sign of his coming. And it was Christ, not wanting them and you to be unprepared or to be ignorant of that time. He begins to prophesy to them about the future atmosphere of the world just before he put in his appearance the very last time.
So all I would encourage you to do later on your own as you do the study is just simply read from Matthew chapter 20, starting 20.
Now, before it continues, let me ask you guys a question. What do you think the purpose of these warnings are? Why is Jesus, and truth be told, why are the Old Testament prophets giving these prophecies and these warnings? What's the purpose? What's the reason? Well, to be prepared. Is this warning given to the people at that time for them to be prepared, or for others to be prepared? Not even just Jews, but also Gentiles. That's going to be the question. I want you to think about that. Have that in your mind when you're thinking about why Jesus gives this warning, why they need to be looking for these particular signs. What's the point? Now let's go back and listen to Jeff.
From 20 to fully through to 23. Okay, just read those few short chapters. Read that. He says, therefore, verse 34, I send you, chapter 23, I send you prophets and wise men and scribes, some of whom you will kill and crucify, and some you will flog in your synagogues. In your what? In your what? In your synagogues, and persecute from town to town, so that on you, who's he talking to? He's talking to the first century Jewish leadership. So that
now he's highlighting a few words, you, and then he's going to highlight a couple other words as well. And from his perspective, he's saying that it's referring to them specifically. We're going to see that that's not really correct.
So that on you may come all the righteous blood shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the sanctuary and the altar. Here it is. Ready? This is it. Truly, I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. Who's he talking to right there? Who? He just said, all these things will come upon this generation. So here you.
Now, a couple things. One, notice also he brought up all these things. So you, this generation, which is going to highlight in a second, and then all these things. And I'm going to submit to you that he is incorrect about all three of these, because these are not referring to that particular generation. But let's let him continue.
Here you have an example of something you cannot force into the future. You have to be honest with the text. Who is Jesus talking to? Who's the audience? What's the time frame? He's talking to the Jewish leadership that he's indicting and he's condemning and he's promising judgment upon. And he says, I say to you, to who? Them.
Now, let me ask you a question also. Do you think that Jesus is only indicting just that Jewish leadership there, or all? So does that mean that those who come after them are off the hook? Is it to say that the Jewish leadership of, the second century, the third century, that they're off the hook? No, because this indictment is not just for a specific small group at a certain part of time. No, this is for all of Israel. Remember what's happening here. And by the way, Jesus is picking this narrative up in Matthew, but this is not the first time we see this, because he is God. He's spoken about this in other places as well. So before we go to the other places, let's go to Matthew 23, and let's look and see on the screen. It says, therefore, Matthew 23, starting in verse 34, therefore, behold, I am sending to you prophets and wise men and scribes. Some of them you will kill, crucify, and some of them you will scourge in your synagogues. Now, here's the question. Where is this being spoken of before? This was brought up before. This was all Jesus is doing is reiterating a prophecy. However, you wouldn't say that these particular Pharisees, that these scribes, these Jews at that time, are they the ones that were responsible for killing the prophets? No, they didn't. Not they themselves. So he's not necessarily indicting just them. He's indicting all of Israel. We're going to see that in a second, though. He says, and some of them you will scourge in your synagogues and persecute from city to city, so that upon you may fall the guilt of all the righteous blood shed on the earth. Is it just them that this blood is going to fall upon? No. From the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temples. So obviously they didn't do so, but he's speaking of just Israel, of these Jews. Truly I say to you, all these things will come upon this generation. And his focus, as many others, is this phrase here, this generation. So the question is, what does this generation mean? Let me highlight this over here in the Greek. This is Tain Ganan, Tautain. So what does this mean, the generation, this generation? Now, there's two ways to look at this. One is them, specifically that generation, or it might mean something else. We're going to see what generation this generation has been referred to in Matthew and in other places. As a matter of fact, even in John, other places in the Bible when Jesus is referring to this generation, who he's speaking of.
He says, all these things will come upon this generation. Now, every exegete who's honest with the text has to say, yeah, that's not future. That's not our future. That was in their future. Which generation was Jesus talking about? He's talking to them. And he says, you. And he says, near demonstrative, this, and generation. He's talking to them. All the blood is going to be upon you. That's judgment. He's
just on them, huh? Just on them. And notice he said all these things. Jesus picks this up, this statement or this prophecy, not out of thin air. This has been brought up before. Where do we see this? And we know this because he references this in what he's saying. But let's go back to where we first see this. In Daniel 9:24, notice what he says. And this also, ladies and gentlemen, is part of what Jesus is bringing up. So when Jeff says all these things, there's more to the picture than what he's bringing up. All these things have to be taken care of, have to be fulfilled. 70 weeks have been decreed for your people. Who's that? Who's your people? Who is Daniel praying about? Well, for Israel, for your people and your holy city to finish transgression, to make an end of sin, to make atonement for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness. And all these things have to be done, to seal up vision and prophecy and to anoint the most holy place. So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be built again with plaza and moat, even in the times of distress. Now, so up to this point, we're talking about 69 sevens or 69 weeks. So what is that? 483 sevens. Now, does he mean all of these 70 weeks to be consecutive? Well, notice verse 26, and he says, let's make this a little bit bigger. I want you all to see this as well. In verse 26, then after the 62 weeks, so after the 69th week. Now, how far after the 69th week? Some folks think that it is wrong to say that there is a gap or a pause. Problem is, if you say that this is consecutive, well, then what happens in this last 7 must have taken place between AD 32-33 and AD 29-40. I'm sorry, 39 and 40. That didn't happen. None of these things happened in that time frame. And again, since this is referring to what Jesus is also bringing up, then, and some will say, well, this must be 80-70. It couldn't fit. So either God is not a very good calculator, he didn't know how to count very well, or these words don't mean what they mean, or maybe the people who are thinking that this all took place before 70 AD or at the time that Jesus was speaking, maybe they're incorrect. Look what he says, though. After this time, what's going to happen? The Messiah will be cut off and have nothing to do with the people of the prince who is to come. Now, people are going to say, well, that didn't make any sense for there to be a pause. But they'll agree that this latter part, there's a pause to it, because they'll say, and the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary. Well, now, we believe that this happens to be the destruction of the temple. And they would agree also. Shouldn't there also be a pause included there? Because clearly there was a pause between the time that Jesus was cut off and the time that the temple was destroyed. How much time? Well, 30-something years to be exact. So we know there was at least a pause that they give credence to, that our millennials will give credence to. So here it is. There's a pause. By the way, just looking at the Hebrew, this right here, let's pull this up, this wa akari, the wa, this indicates there is something continuing, but it's not successively. Now, let's go back to what he was saying in Matthew. Let's go back to reading this. And he says, keep continuing in verse 37, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stone those who are sent to her. This is all of Israel is going to be punished because of this. Who kills the sons of the prophets and stone those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, and you were unwilling. Behold, your house is being left to you desolate. What house? What does he mean by your house? Well, clearly he's speaking about the house of Israel, the Jerusalem, these Jews, your house. For I say to you, from now on, you will not see me until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Remember when Jeff says all these things? Remember that. Now, I'll pause for a second. We'll come back, let Jeff speak some more. But remember, all of the things that we just spoke of in Deuteronomy, in Daniel, and this portion of Matthew, all of these things are the things that must take place.
He's warning them, you better repent because his fury and his judgment is coming. The axe is at the root of the trees. So Jesus isn't all of a sudden introducing like this whole thing of coming judgment upon them as though it was some surprise. That's what was preached from the beginning with the forerunner. And by the way, can't do it today, but the Old Testament said that when Messiah came, it'd be a time of salvation, purification, and judgment upon the covenant breakers. And that's precisely what you see here. But here's what it says. Jerusalem, oh Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often would I have gathered your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So Jesus left the temple and was going away when his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. But he answered them, you see all these things, do you not? Truly I say to you, okay, we already had a you there. Who's he talking to? The you of the Jewish leadership. You, your generation, this generation, not pass away. You. And then he said,
so do we really think that it stops with them? So the Jews that come after them, they have nothing to suffer. There's no punishment for them. He's going to end with them. No, that is not the case. And we're going to see this in a second, though.
He says to the disciples, I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. He just said your house is left to you desolate. And then he says, the temple, there's not going to be one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. That's a big deal. The place of worship, God called us to build this thing, the annual sacrifices, Yom Kippurim, the Day of Atonements, all that. What do you mean?
Now remember, so he's bringing up the destruction of the temple. If the destruction of the temple, and all of this coincides with Daniel 9. Before I forget, let's just go ahead and make it clear that this is Daniel 9 this is bringing up, or coinciding with Daniel 9. In Matthew 24, later on, he says, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken through Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. So clearly what Jesus is speaking about in Matthew 23 and 24 is related to Daniel 9, Daniel 12. And so there's a reason why I'm saying this, because all these things, we have to look and see about all these things, and if all these things have happened.
What do you mean it's going to be taken apart? And so as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately saying, tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? What things? When will these things be? Well, they just witnessed Jesus lay the 7 woe smackdown upon the leadership in Jerusalem and said to them, your house is left to you desolate, and said to them, all the blood of the righteous is going to be upon this generation. What's the sign of your coming and the end of the age? Now
here's where he's going to make just a bad mistake. This is just wrong how he's going to put this together. He's going to focus on the word Iona or Ionion, which is the age. He's going to make a mistake, and we're going to show in the scriptures that that's not what it means at all.
I'll just point you over here to the screen here if you can see it. I just pulled it up on Bible Hub instead of pulling it up on the software. This is Matthew 24, verse 3. This is important. Check out the end portion of the verse here. So in English, we have, tell us when will these things be and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age. Some translations you're using, it uses a different word there, world. Okay. But what is it in the Greek? What's it actually mean? Well, take a look. So if you look down here, right here, the word age, ionos. Okay. Age. This is not the word cosmos. This is not talking about the physical world. So they're not asking about the end of the world. They are asking about the consummation of the ionos, age. That's the question. Okay, why is that important? Come back. All right. It's important because Jesus just prophesied the destruction of the Jewish system. He just prophesied all the judgment of God falling upon that generation. And they would have immediately understood this to mean, of course, the destruction of that old age, that old covenant age. They knew the Messiah's coming meant a new age. That's how they understood it. A new age.
No, they
new
didn't.
covenant.
That's not true at all. By the way, whether they understood that or not, if that's how they understood it, that's not how Jesus meant it, number one. And we can prove that. Let's go to Logos. And here's the text that he's speaking of, Matthew 24:3. Now, what I have highlighted is the word age. And here's the word ion. And I want you to look at all the different ways that this word is, the different ways that it's used, the different nuances. Forever, worlds, forevermore, ever, of old, forever and ever. You know, we use this as far as in terms of speaking about eternal security or being saved forever. But right here where we see the age, we clicked on that and let's drop down. And here's some of the places where the word age is used. Now, let's go back over here and I want to pull up where the word age is used. And just with Jesus in Matthew 13:39. You tell me if it's speaking about a Jewish system or speaking about into the ages, focusing on this present age that we're in right now. Matthew 13:39. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil, and the harvest is the end of the age. Same word. And the reapers are angels. Now, he's speaking about salvation. So just as the tares are gathered up and burned with fire, so shall it be at the end of the age. Now, is he speaking about the end of this Jewish system or the end of the age that we're in? Clearly, it's not the Jewish system. The Son of Man will send forth his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all stumbling blocks and those who commit lawlessness, and will throw them into the furnace of fire, in that place where there would be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let them hear. How about, let's go to verse 49. So it will be, let's make this big. So I want you all to see that the same Greek word is used in verse 49. So it will be at the end of the age, same word, ionos, the angels will come forth and take out the wicked from among the righteousness. Now, by the way, he's speaking in the same way that he's speaking about them in Matthew 23 and 24. Is he speaking about the end of the Jewish system? No, he's speaking about the end of the age, how you and I would understand it naturally. What about Matthew 28:20? Same way it's used here in Matthew 28:20, teaching them to observe all that I command you, and lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Is that until the end of the Jewish system? No. So how he's using it, he's using the word to make it fit his doctrinal belief. So if we go back to Matthew 24, and let's read what he says here. Jesus came out from the temple and was going away when his disciples came up and asked him. By the way, it's only 4 disciples that are there with him. All the disciples weren't there. And he points to the building, to the temple buildings, and to him he said to them, do you not see all these things? Truly I say to you, not one stone here will be left upon another, which will be torn down. So he's clearly talking about the destruction of the temple, but all of these things are going to be happening, not just that. And he was sitting on the Mount of Olives. The disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when will these things happen, and what will be the sign of your coming at the end of the age? So what they're saying is not the end of the age in terms of the end of the Jewish system. They know that Jesus is not here to destroy the Jewish system. They understand that Jesus is speaking about eternity. So this is what they mean, not what Jeff says they mean. That is incorrect. And Jesus answered and said to them, see to it that no one misleads you. Now, we're going to jump into all these things that he keeps speaking of, and then we're also going to look at this generation. See to it that no one misleads you, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will mislead many. Between that time and now, did we get a lot of people that came and said that they are the Christ at that time? Maybe. We don't have a lot of documentation of it, but maybe, possibly. But that's just one of the things. You will be hearing of wars and rumors of war. These are the things that must take place. So if this was fulfilled at that time, if that was a generation, these are the things that would have had to have taken place, or else Jesus and the prophets were in error. See that you are not frightened, for those things must take place, but that is not yet the end. So even when those things take place, that's still not the end. For nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. That didn't happen at that point in time. And in various places, there will be famines and earthquakes. Don't know that to be the case or not, because I'm pretty sure there were some famines. Who was documenting earthquakes at that time? Don't know. But all these things are merely the beginning of birth pangs. Then they will deliver you to tribulation and will kill you, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name. Now, who's there? I said there were 4 people that were there with Jesus. One of them was John. This didn't happen to John. So this could not have been what took place at that time. At that time, many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. The falling away, which we see in 1 Timothy 4, this great falling away from the faith, that didn't happen. As a matter of fact, even at that time, and even at 70 AD, we see an increase of people coming to the faith. Many false prophets will arise and mislead many because lawlessness is increased. Most people's love will grow cold, but the one who endures to the end, he will be saved. This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached to the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. When he says all these things must take place, have all these things thus far that we've read, have they all taken place? I don't think so. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken through Daniel, again, that must take place as well. Standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Then those who are in Judea must flee to the mountains. Whoever is on the housetop must not go down to get his things out that are in his house. Whoever is in the field must not turn back to get his cloak. Woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies, but pray that your flight will not be in the winter. Look what it says, verse 21. For then there will be a great tribulation, such as has not occurred since the beginning of the world. Let's pause there for a second. That has to happen. Remember, this prophecy was given to Daniel. Daniel is getting ready, is praying about Israel returning back into the land. And that's where this comes from. But what happened prior to that? Remember, there was was a killing field there in Israel as they were taken out of the land. But at that time, young, old, babies, male, female, were being slaughtered, and you saw people killing and eating each other. That's how bad it was then. They have not seen it that bad since then. So when Jesus says, for there will be a great tribulation such as has not occurred since the beginning, 70 AD, as bad as it was nothing compared to what happened during the Babylonian captivity and Israel being taken out. Remember, at that point in time, the glory of the Lord, the Spirit of the Lord had left Israel at that time. It was horrible. But this is what was prophesied in Deuteronomy 28 as well. So that also would have had to have taken place at that time. It had not taken place at that time. He says, unless those days would have been cut short, no life would have been saved, but for the sake of the elect. Is that how we're describing what happened during that time, during that generation's time, if we're speaking about that specific chronological generation, that the people that lived at that time? Did that happen then? No. Then if anyone says to you, behold, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe him, for false Christs and false prophets will arise and will show great signs as wonders. Now look at this. So as to mislead, if possible, even the elect. Behold, I have told you in advance. Now let's drop down. What are some of the other things? For just as lightning comes from the east and flashes even to the west, so will the coming of the man be. Coming of the Son of Man be. Did the coming of the Son of Man happen at that point in time? No. How about verse 29? But immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky. Did those things happen? How about the next verse 30? And then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn. Did that happen? No. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds in the sky. Did that happen? No. And he will send forth his angels, a great trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other. Did that ever happen? No, it did not. So Jesus is speaking about this great tribulation. Where did this come from? This came from Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 6. Ask now and see if a male can give birth. Why do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in childbirth? And why have all the faces turned pale? Alas, for that day is great. There is none like it. And it is a time of Jacob's distress, but he will be saved from it. Notice this is happening as they're going through this horrendous time, this Babylonian captivity. And he's focusing or speaking of something that's going to happen in the future that's worse than what they're going through. But this is the tribulation that they're speaking of. Now, before I continue, notice the things that have to take place, because Jeff said these things. This is why I'm in agreement with Philip Anthony Mitchell and not in agreement at all with Jeff Durbin. Love him, but no, he's wrong on this. These are the things that must be accomplished during these 70 weeks. Finish transgression, put an end to it, make an end to sin. Now that might kind of coincide with the first part, so it might be kind of the same thought. That is, to make it into sin. Either this is finishing the thought of the previous or punishment. Number 3, atonement for iniquity. This can only refer to Israel, who as a nation has not had her sin atoned for. 4, bringing everlasting righteousness, making Israel in right standing forever. Seal up visions and prophecies. This is to fulfill every prophecy he said. Number 6, anoint the most holy place. Only the word holy is present, so it could either refer to the city or to the temple or Jesus himself. Well, I would say that it would probably have to refer to either the city or the temple. Clearly, that didn't happen. So those are the things that have to take place as well. But it's not just those. Look at what Jesus says has to take place. They will say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Did the Jews say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord? No, they did not. What about this? Nation rising against nations? We didn't see that. Famines and earthquake, possibly. Then they will deliver you. Who's the they and who's the you to tribulation and kill you. 5, a great falling away from the faith, not having faith. That didn't happen. 6, this gospel will be preached to the world. That didn't happen. A great tribulation like never seen. That didn't happen. The sun darkened, moon won't give light, stars fall. Some might say that's figuratively. I don't think so, but even so, how did that figuratively happen? Neither of those things happen. What about number 9? The Son of Man is to return. That clearly didn't happen. And verse number 10, he will gather his people or his elect. That didn't happen. But Corey, what about this word, this generation? Well, it's a demonstrative, but does it only refer to time? No, it does not. Let me give you an example. When he says this generation, when it brings up this whole notion of this generation, well, how has God referred to Israel? God has constantly referred to Israel as what? This generation. Let's pull up a couple of verses. Let's start in Matthew. Where do I want to go to? Let's start in Matthew 24. Matthew 12:41. The men of Nineveh will stand up with this generation. Same words here. Tes, ganeas, tautes. Same thing that's used there. Will stand up with the men of this generation at judgment and will condemn it because they repented at the preaching of Jonah. So he's only speaking about that generation, no other Jews. The queen of the south will rise up with this generation at the judgment. So what's he speaking of? He's not speaking of just the people at that particular time. How do we know? Let's look at some more passages that bring up the word this generation. Let me make this a little bit bigger also. Truly I say to you that all these things will come upon this generation. Now, so here we are. This is where we see it in Matthew 23. But look at 24. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things have taken place. Did all those things take place? So it couldn't be speaking about that particular generation. So now we're going to see where this generation clearly doesn't refer to that generation only, specifically. Mark 8:12, sighing deeply in his spirit, he said, why does this generation seek for a sign? This generation, he brings us up in John 4 and in John 6. He's not referring to just those people there. This generation is also can refer to this people, this kind of people. Ganea can refer to, if you look, well, it can refer to a generation, kind of a chronological generation, but it can also refer to a people group, a race, a kind. So this generation can refer to them as well. Truly I say to you, no sign will be given to this generation. How about Mark 13:30? Truly, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Luke 7:31. To what then shall I compare the men of this generation? These kind of people. They are alike. That's what he means by this generation. So let's go to Hebrews 3:10, where we're going to see this phrase, this generation, referring to Israel, all of Israel, because we don't think that just that particular locale, that particular group of Jews are the ones that are going to receive the brunt of this, whereas the Jews that come after that, they'll be let off the hook. No, it's not going to happen. And so Hebrews 3:10, therefore I was angry with this generation and said, they always go astray in their heart and they did not know my ways. Who's he speaking of in Hebrews? He's not speaking of the Jews at that time during Jesus' day only. He's speaking of the Jews during Jesus' day, the Jews prior to Jesus' day, the Jews after. That's why there's this spirit of stupor, this hardened heart on Israel even today. He's speaking about in judgment of Israel, all of them. So this generation refers to Israel, not just at that particular time. So don't forget the whole point, the whole purpose of what God is trying to do. God is going to fulfill his promise, the promise that he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's going to remember that covenant. He's going to remember the land. He is going to save Israel, all of Israel? No, but he's going to cause certain Jews, certain people of Israel to have a regenerated heart, to put his spirit in them. And in that way, all of Israel, all of the true Israel will be saved, but not just Israel. Also, the Gentiles who are believers in Christ will be saved as well. The point of the tribulation, but the point of that time, the point of the abomination of desolations is to bring Israel to her knees with such wrath that it's going to force her to call out and cry out to her Messiah. And then he will reign as king, not just over Israel, over the Jews, but also over us, all of the believers. So, yeah, I think that, and while, again, I do love Jeff Durbin. I love a lot of things that he does and a lot of his doctrine. This one, though, I disagree. Now, all of that being said, let's make sure that this is not necessarily a point of contention to where, hey, you're not saved, you're an idiot, you're this, that. No, because I could be wrong. I don't think so. Using this the way I've just looked at this and how the word generation referring to Israel is always used, I shouldn't say always used, but that it's used majority, especially the way Jesus refers to them, not just in Matthew, but in John and other parts in Hebrews, how this generation is referred to in the Old Testament, and the point of what Jesus is bringing up from the Old Testament prophecies. All of these things have to be fulfilled. Otherwise, Jesus is incorrect, or at least the writers of the Bible are incorrect. That cannot be. And so in this case, I think Philip Anthony Mitchell is correct and Jeff Durbin is wrong. Amen.